It was supposed to be one of those perfect summer Saturdays, the kind that families hold on to as memories for years, when the grill smoke curls lazily into the sky. Kids laugh in the yard, and the scent of burgers, ribs, and corn on the cob drifts through the neighborhood like an invitation to pure happiness. My wife and I had planned the family BBQ for weeks, sending out texts to cousins, inviting a few close friends, and making sure the cooler was stocked with enough drinks to last the day. The backyard was alive with the sounds of music, chatter, and the comforting crackle of the grill as I flipped burgers, my kids chasing each other through the sprinklers. It felt like everything was in harmony until Karen appeared. Every neighborhood has one. That one person who seems to thrive on control, a self-appointed enforcer of rules, and in our case, Karen was that person. She wasn't even technically on the HOA board, but she treated our community handbook like her personal holy scripture. Her short, sharp haircut framed a face permanently tightened into a scowl, and she strutted across the street toward us with arms crossed, jaw clenched, and eyes narrowed like we had just desecrated her property. "You can't grill here," she barked without even saying hello. "It's against HOA policy." Her voice cut through the laughter and music, and suddenly the cheerful energy in the yard dipped into awkward silence. I felt every pair of eyes, my family, my guests, waiting to see how I would respond. I took a deep breath, my hands still gripping the tongs, the heat of the grill warming my face. "Actually, Karen, we're within the rules," I said calmly, forcing a smile. "The handbook clearly allows BBQs as long as we holler in our own yard and not creating a fire hazard." But Karen wasn't looking for logic. She was looking for power. Her lips curled into a smirk that made my stomach knot. "We'll see about that," she snapped, pulling out her phone. Right there in front of my children, my family, my neighbors, she dialed the cops as if we were committing a felony by grilling hot dogs. "Yes, officer," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear, her eyes locked on mine like she was already savoring victory. "My neighbors are violating HOA policy, they're a fire hazard, and they're refusing to stop." I could feel humiliation rise hot in my chest, like I'd been stripped bare in front of everyone. My little girl clung to my leg, whispering, "Daddy, are we in trouble?" My son's laughter had died into a nervous frown. My wife gave me that look of frustration mixed with empathy, the look that said she hated seeing me disrespected like this. Inside, I was seething. My heart pounded against my ribs, my hands shook, and the smell of charred meat felt suddenly bitter. All I wanted to do was shout, to tell Karen off in front of everyone to reclaim the dignity she was trying to steal, but I bit my tongue. Minutes later, 2 officers showed up, their cruiser pulling to the curb with the kind of quiet authority that made every guest shift uncomfortably. Karen greeted them like a queen calling her knights to battle. "Officers, thank goodness you're here. They're breaking HOA rules, endangering the whole neighborhood." She gestured toward our grill as if it were a ticking time bomb. The cops listened politely, then turned to me. "Sir, can you explain what's going on?" I showed them the handbook, the same rules Karen claimed to know so well, and pointed out that BBQs were explicitly allowed. The officers looked at each other, then back at me, their expressions hovering between amusement and annoyance at being dragged out for something so petty. One of them sighed, handed the booklet back, and said, "You're not doing anything wrong. Enjoy your BBQ." Then they turned to Karen. "Ma'am, please don't waste emergency resources with false reports." The words hit her like a slap, and for the first time that day, her smirk faltered. My family cheered quietly, relief rippling through the yard as the cops drove away. But Karen didn't back down. She stood there fuming, muttering about rules being rules, before finally stomping back across the street. The party picked back up, but I couldn't shake the sting of humiliation, the way she had tried to destroy our simple joy. And that's when I decided I wasn't just going to let it go. If Karen wanted to play HOA hardball, then I was going to beat her at her own game. That night, after the last guest left and the grill had cooled to silence, I sat at my kitchen table with the HOA handbook, Page after page, I combed through every clause, every regulation, every penalty. And then I found it, a section about false complaints and misuse of HOA authority. The penalty? A fine and removal of committee privileges. My pulse quickened, a fire of determination lighting inside me. Karen thought she could humiliate me, but she had handed me the perfect weapon. The next morning, I documented everything: the false call to the cops, the disruption of our event, the humiliation in front of neighbors. I wrote it all down, submitted it to the HOA board along with witness statements from 2 of my guests, and waited. Those days of waiting were filled with nervous energy. Part of me worried the board would side with her. After all, Karen had spent years worming her way into their good graces, always the first to volunteer, always the loudest voice in meetings. But the other part of me, the part that replayed my daughter E's frightened face when Karen called the cops, knew I couldn't back down. Justice wasn't just about me anymore. It was about standing up for my family. 2 weeks later, the decision came. Karen had been fined heavily for filing a false complaint, and her so-called committee privileges were revoked. She was barred from attending board meetings for 6 months, stripped of the little power she had clung to so desperately. When I read the letter, a laugh burst from my chest, the kind of laugh that comes only from deep relief and triumph. And the best part? Our HOA newsletter published the decision for the entire neighborhood to see. Karen's reputation, once wrapped in smug authority, crumbled overnight. Neighbors who had once tolerated her antics began rolling their eyes when she walked by. She could no longer bark orders about lawn heights or trash cans without people snickering. Her power had evaporated, and I had been the one to take it away. But the real victory came the following weekend, when we hosted another BBQ. This time, word had spread. Neighbors I barely knew showed up with side dishes and lawn chairs, eager to celebrate not just good food, but a small triumph of fairness. The air was thick with the smell of smoked ribs and grilled corn, the sound of clinking glasses and the laughter of kids running free. And there was Karen, sitting on her porch across the street, watching in silent fury as the very community she had tried to control now came together without her. My wife leaned into me, smiling as she whispered, "She looks like she's choking on her own bitterness." I grinned, taking a long sip of my drink, savoring not just the flavor, but the justice of the moment. In that instant, every knot of humiliation, every pang of anger, every ounce of frustration melted away. I felt proud, validated, and stronger for having stood my ground. Looking back, I realized that Karen's mistake wasn't just calling the cops on a BBQ, it was underestimating the power of community, the strength of family, and the resilience of someone who refuses to be bullied. Revenge didn't need to come in the form of shouting matches or petty insults. It came in the form of patience, documentation, and using the very system she worshipped to bring her down. And maybe that's the greatest lesson. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't loud. It's quiet, steady, and undeniable. Karen thought she was above the rules, but in the end, the rules burned her instead. That BBQ became more than just a summer memory. It became a symbol of standing up for what's right, of reclaiming joy from the grip of bitterness, and of watching karma serve itself on a silver platter. And every time I light the grill now, every time I hear the sizzle of meat and the laughter of my children, I remember that day not with anger, but with satisfaction. Because in the end, Karen gave me the gift of victory, and all I had to do was let her arrogance cook itself into defeat.